Hi everyone. Our topic for today is about reading. So I hope you will be learning something about reading today. As its core, reading is a form of time travel and telepathy. It is the extraordinary process of looking at tiny ink stained symbols only on a page or pixels on a screen and translating them into a vivid voices, ideas, and words inside your head. So through reading, guys, you can converse with a philosopher who died 2000 years ago, explore the inner workings of a distant galaxy, or feel the exact emotions of someone living a life entirely different from your own. So let's move on with our lesson. Okay. Oh, I did that. Okay. So we have here reading. Reading is not merely a passive exercise in vocalizing letters. It is highly complex, active cognitive process of decoding symbols to construct meaning. It requires a dynamic interaction between the reader's existing knowledge, the language of the text, and the context of reading situation. So here we've defined what reading is. So rather than treating it as a simple mechanical act, this definition highlights reading as a highly active, intellectual, and context dependent process. So many people, guys, think of reading as simply looking at a word and speaking it aloud for sounding or sounding it, okay? Sounding it in sounding it out in their head. So this is decoding actually, but decoding alone is not reading. Take note of that. True reading, guys, requires mental effort. If you have ever read an entire page actually of a book while reading what or reading about what you have what have you have to eat for dinner or thinking about what to eat, for dinner, only to realize you have no idea of what you just read, you have experienced passive vocalization about active reading. So take note, guys, here that a highly complex, as is stated here, active cognitive process of decoding symbols to contract meaning. This gets to the heart of what reading actually is, meaning making. So, for example, for symbols, written words are just abstract shapes on a page. Constructing meaning, the author here doesn't hand you meaning directly. You have to build it yourself. Your brain has to translate those abstract shapes into sounds, associate those sounds, guys, with concepts in your vocabulary, arrange those concepts grammatically, and build a mental picture or logical argument. It says here, there, dynamic interaction between. So here, guys, you cannot understand a text without bringing your own life experience, whether cultural background and prior knowledge to it. For example, reading a scientific paper on quantum physics requires a completely different set of background knowledge than reading a fantasy novel. Okay, so another is that the language, let me underscore the line, the language of the text. Oh, what does it mean when we speak of the language of the text? This includes the vocabulary, sentence structure, the tone and genre used by the author. If the language is too archaic, for example, or technical, the interaction breaks down. And then when we say context of the reading situation, what does we mean here? So the why and where you are reading matters. No? So reading a context, reading a textbook under the pressure of studying for an exam yields a completely different experience than reading a mystery novel for fun on a rainy Sunday afternoon. So, so what would be the takeaway that we could get from this definition of reading? So therefore, reading here is a two-way conversation between the author and the reader. So the slide or the text itself is static, but the act of reading is dynamic because every reader has different prior knowledge and reads in a different context. No two people will ever read the exact same book in the exact same way. Okay, let's move on. Let's have here the schema theory of Bartlett and Rommel Hart. Okay, so here we have there this foundational theory posits that readers do not absorb meaning from a blank slate. Instead, they interpret text using schemata, mental framework or structures of pre-existing knowledge stored in the memory. Comprehension occurs when a reader successfully maps the new incoming data from the text onto their existing schematic structure. So here, guys, uh, it was introduced, no? So in this slide, it builds directly on the previous definition of reading by introducing a core cognitive framework. So the schema theory, which was famously developed by Frederick, actually, Bartlett in 1932 and later expanded by David Romelhart in 1980, explains exactly how a reader's existing knowledge interacts with a text to produce understanding. So let's have the discussion of this further. The readers, okay, let us have this line. The readers do not absorb meaning from a blank slate. What does this mean? This rejects the old transmission guys model of reading, which assumed that text is a container of meaning and the reader is just an empty vessel waiting to be filled. So it's like the tabula rasa myth. So if the readers guys were blank slates, anyone who knows how to decode words would understand every text perfectly. So we know that this is not true. So if you read a legal brief or a complex medical journal without background training, the words might make sense individually, but the overall meaning won't click. Oh, let's have another one. Let's have this slide. They interpret text using schemata, mental frameworks. What does it mean? Okay, what is the meaning of schema? A schema, guys, take note, is essentially a mental filing cabinet or a cognitive blueprint stored in a long-term memory. So how does this schemata work? Take note, guys. Your brain categorizes concepts, experiences, and rules to help you navigate the world quickly. For instance, guys, you have a schema for going to a restaurant. Okay? So what do you do in the restaurant? Of course, you eat in a restaurant, you order food, you sit down, you look at the menu before ordering, right? So because you have this mental framework, okay, if a story says he left a tip and walked out, the author here does not need to explain that he ate food or paid the bill. Your schema here automatically fills in the missing details. Okay, take note of the other line. It says here in the slide, comprehension occurs when a reader successfully maps the new incoming data for the text onto their existing schematic structures. So what does this mean? This is, guys, the operational definition of reading comprehension under this theory of Bartlett. Comprehension is the act of connection. So when you read, your brain constantly performs a matching game because you are comprehending. There is an activation in your brain. The text triggers a specific schema in your mind. And then we have there the word mapping and assimilation. So you fit the new information from the text into the slots of that existing mental framework of yours. Now, let's have what happens now when the schema theory breaks down. So in educational or literary context, guys, reading difficulties often stem from schema issues rather than the poor decoding skills. Okay, take note, schema ability, the lack of background. So the reader doesn't possess the required mental framework. For example, guys, a student from a tropical climate reading a story deeply rooted in the logistics of surviving a blizzard may struggle to comprehend the characteristics or the character's urgency. So here, schema activation, failure to connect, the reader has the knowledge, but the text fails to trigger it, or the reader doesn't or does not realize they should apply it. So what would be the schema misinterpretation here? The reader maps the text onto the wrong schema. For example, if a passage mentions a strike, a sports enthusiast might activate a baseball schema, while a labor advocate might advocate a union protest schema, leading to entirely different interpretation of the text. So let's move on to another slide. Now, let's have now the importance of reading. It says here in the slides, guys, reading serves as the primary gateway to lifelong learning and cognitive development. Its importance spans multiple domains. For example, what are this importance of reading? We have here language and vocabulary acquisition. Under language and vocabulary acquisition, exposure to diverse texts expands lexical networks or reinforces structural grammar implicitly. And another one is cognitive growth. Reading exercises working memory, critical thinking, and analytical reasoning by forcing the brain to track narratives, arguments, and abstract logic. And then we have here social emotional empathy. Narrative immersion allows individuals to experience alternative perspectives, enhancing theory of mind and emotional intelligence. Okay? So let us discuss this further. Okay, first one, language and vocabulary acquisition. We said there it's an exposure. Exposure to diverse text expand logical networks and reinforces structural grammar explicitly. So here, guys, let's point out the highlights that reading is the single most effective way to master a language. So actually it operates on two levels. We have here the lexical networks. Okay, I mentioned here vocabulary. And the other one is explicit grammar. Okay, so in this lexical network, we rarely learn new and complex words by looking them up in a dictionary or isolation. Instead, we learn them through contextual exposure. So reading exposes us to words in their natural habitat. Every time we see a word used in a sentence, our brain maps its relationship to other words, building a rich, interconnected lexical network. While in the explicit grammar, guys, rather than memorizing rigid grammar rules, a regular readers develop an intuitive feel for that language. Okay? So this is why avid readers often know a sentence sounds right, even if they cannot formally state the grammatical rule behind it. Okay? And then we have here cognitive growth. Okay, let me explain it further. So here, guys, reading is highly intensity workout for the brain. Unlike watching a video where images and pacing are provided for you, reading here requires the brain to do the heavy lifting. That's why we have their working memory. Okay? So working memory. Okay? So here, let's underscore working memory. To understand, guys, a paragraph, of course, your brain must hold onto the information from the previous paragraph. You have to recall. If you are reading a novel, your working memory tracks the character, okay? The character and motives over the hundreds of pages. So if you are reading a textbook or a legal case, it tracks steps in an argument or procedural rules. The other one here, guys, is the analytical. Take a look at the slide. Analytical and abstract logic. Here, reading forces you to slow down and process logic. It trains the brain to recognize what would be the cause and the effect relationship, what would be the cause of the action, and what would be the effect. So it shows the cause and effect relationships. You spot inconsistencies in arguments and draw inferences from what is not explicitly stated. So reading between the lines. So that will fall under analytical reasoning and abstract logic. And the last one we have there, socio-emotional empathy. Let us underscore the word narrative immersion. So narrative immersion, guys, take note. When we read a story, our brains simulate the experiences of the characters as if you're one of the characters in the story. Okay? So functional MRI scans shows that when we read about a character running, the areas of our brain now associated with physical running actually light up. And then we have the theory of mind. Okay? So this is the cognitive ability to attribute mental states, belief, intents, desire, and emotions, and knowledge to oneself and others, and to understand that others have beliefs that are different from one's own. So by stepping into the different characters' mind, regardless of their culture, guys, regardless of the culture, the gender, okay, or even the background, readers actively practice empathy. You know what's the meaning of empathy, guys? You put yourself on the shoes of the others. You're feeling their own emotions. Okay? So it acts as a stimulation engine now for human relationship, making us more socially aware and emotionally intelligent in the real world. Okay? So next. Let's have the types and process of reading. So depending on the reader's purpose and the nature of the material, reading generally manifests in four operational types. What are these? We have the skimming, we have the scanning, intensive reading, and intensive reading and extensive reading. Okay, let us define. When we speak of skimming, guys, says there, rapid reading focus entirely on capturing the gist or the main ideas of a text. Example there, flipping through a chapter to get the overall thesis. Okay? So that is skimming. So take note, here in the skimming, reading for the gist, the important idea. So high speed, what it is, the high speed reading where your eyes glide over the text to capture the main ideas, overall structure or thesis, while intentionally skipping details. So your focus here, you focus on headings, the first and last sentences of the paragraph could be folded words, and introductory concluding sections. Okay? Flipping through a textbook chapter to preview what you will learn, reviewing a long document to see if it is relevant to your research, or reading news article, for example, quickly to get the main story. And then we have here scanning. It says they're looking for a specific piece of information or keyword while ignoring the rest of the text. Example, looking for a specific legal citation or a date in a historical context. So let us discuss this further. What is this all about? It's a highly targeted search technique where you ignore almost all the text and hunt exclusively for specific keyword, number, name, or citation. And then, instead of reading left to right, line by line, guys, your eyes here travel rapidly across and down the page in a search pattern. Okay? So take note of this, waiting for a specific target visual to jump out. So searching a legal database for a specific case citation or statutory provision, looking up a date in a historical timeline, or finding a phone number in a directory. Then we have here intensive reading. Okay, what is this? Look at the slide. It says there a close, detailed, and analytical examination of a short context. So the goal here is literal, inferential, and critical understanding of every word and structural nuance. Example here, guys, analyzing a statute or poetry, that is intensive. So here, so what does this mean? It's a slow, okay, that's why it's analyzing. You have to analyze, so you have to be slow here. You have to deliberate and highly analytical in examining, analytical examination of a relative, short, dense text. So the reader here, you as a reader, aims for a complete literal or inferential and critical comprehension. So this involves analyzing now syntax. That's why you question, no? You ask questions, questioning assumptions, looking up unfamiliar terms. So you're analyzing already and dissecting structural nuances. So this uh, when are you going to use it? When to use it? So deconstructing a complex legal statute, interpreting a poem, for example, you analyze a contract or parsing a dense or scientific formula. Okay? So that is intensive reading. You analyze. Okay? For you to have an intensive reading, okay, you have to analyze, okay, the text, the context, the formula written on a specific text. And then another one is extensive reading. So what is the difference now between intensive and extensive reading? When we speak of extensive reading, guys, it says there in our slide, reading longer text for general understanding and pleasure, often without worrying about every unfamiliar word. So this builds reading fluency and vocabulary over time. So what is this all about? Let me discuss it further. Reading here longer text, it says there. So often of the reader's own choosing for general understanding, enrichment, or pure pleasure. So the reader here focuses on the overall flow or the narrative rather than stopping to look up every unfamiliar word. Vocabulary and syntax are absorbed naturally through context. So, for example, reading a novel. So, reading a novel or a biography or exchanging history book over time. This is the primary way now individuals build overall reading stamina and speed and automaticity. Okay? And then we have here factors influencing the acquisition on reading skills. Look at the screen, guys. Okay? Here, guys, it says there, learning to read is not an evolutionary guarantee that learning to speak. It must be explicitly taught and acquired. This acquisition is influenced by an intersection of cognitive, linguistic, and environmental factors. Okay, let us discuss this further because stated there are the three major domains. So what are these? We have cognitive, linguistics, and linguistic and environmental factors. We mentioned here in this slide that the no evolutionary guarantee premise. Take note, guys, that human beings have been speaking for hundreds of thousands of years. So as long as child is raised around talking humans, they will learn to speak, of course. However, guys, reading is only few thousand years old. The brain has to physically rewire itself to read, a process cognitive scientists, okay? Like, for example, Wolf calls brain plasticity or neuronal recycling. So because reading is an artificial technology, guys, we impose on our biology. It must be explicitly taught. If left entirely to their own devices in a room full of books, most children, of course, will not learn to read naturally. Okay? So another, we have there the intersection of influencing factors. Okay? So to understand how person successfully acquires literacy, we must look at the three pillars mentioned on the slide. What are those we have there? Again, going back, cognitive, linguistic, and environmental factors. Okay? So let us discuss it further. Cognitive and linguistic factors under this. we have phonological awareness. Let me define what is this all about. The foundational ability to recognize and manipulate individual sounds, phonemes in spoken language without this decoding text is incredibly difficult. And then vocabulary size and deep, knowing what words mean when spoken allows a reader to quickly map decoded words to actual concept. Okay. Take note, guys. In the cognitive factors, okay, take note that cognitive, these are the internal mental processing capabilities of the reader's brain. That's why if you try to look back of, or if you could still recall what I mentioned a while ago, cognitive has something to do with, of course, the memory, working memory and attention. So the ability to hold letters, for example, sounds and sentence meanings in mind simultaneously while focusing on the text without getting easily distracted. So here, the brain's capacity to recognize visual patterns rapidly and bound them to their pronunciations and meanings in memory. And then the capability, of course, to manage the mental effort required. If decoding words takes too much mental energy, there is no cognitive room left for actual comprehension. Okay? Now, how about, because it's not we did not just write there cognitive. No, we also include linguistic factors. So when we speak of the linguistic factors, guys, these are the language specific building blocks the reader brings to the page. That's why we have their phonological or and phonemic awareness. Okay? Okay. You look at the how we define and discuss this phonological awareness. Okay? Take note. Here, guys, take note, no? The fundamental ability to hear, identify, and manipulate individual sounds, no? Sounds has something to do, of course, with, okay, with phonemes. We have discussed this before in spoken words. So if a learner cannot hear the individual sounds in speech, they will struggle, of course, to map them to letters. And then the second one, we have here vocabulary and semantic knowledge. So the size of a learner's oral vocabulary. So if a child decodes the letters, for example, in the word cat, the that's the sound, but has never heard the word cat or seen one, they cannot bridge the gap to meaning. Okay? Take note of that, guys. Okay? And then we have here environmental and socioeconomic factors. Under environmental and socioeconomic factors, we have their print-rich environments. And it says in the slide, early exposure to books, parent-child shared reading practices, and access to literacy material drastically accelerate learning reading development. I do not know when you were young or when you were a baby, I do not know if your mother reads you story. No? Okay. So some of us really, no, we have that kind of experience wherein our mother really reads stories for us, no? Like for example, the story of Cinderella, no? You may raise your hand if you have an experience like this, guys. No. So environmental factors. So these are the external contextual conditions that support or hinder the learner. So we have here explicit systematic instruction. So access to structured literacy instruction. Example here, phonics-based teaching or explicit comprehension strategies rather than assuming they will pick it up. Okay? So here I put it there, print rich environment. So exposure. Okay? You try to recall when you were young. Exposure to books. Were you exposed when you were younger? Did you ask your mom to buy you books because you really love to read Cinderella, what else? Little Red Riding Hood, no? Goldilocks. Those are some of the stories, no? That usually our parents read the stories to us before we sleep at night. Okay? So exposure to books, science, and writing at home and in the classroom. So children who observe adults reading and have easy access to books develop stronger pre-literary skills. That's why if you notice and if you observe, guys, no, those children who are exposed at early age in this reading skills, no, they know how to express themselves. They could talk, no, they know a lot of stories if they are exposed to this when they were young, no. And another is socioeconomic status often dictates structural access to well-founded libraries, explicit early intervention, and systematic reading programs. So here, guys, access to quality schooling, libraries, and early childhood education, factors like material education and early childhood vocabulary exposure. So the word gap play massive roles in readiness. Okay, next let's have another one, factors of influencing acquisition and reading skills. We have here psychological and affective factors. Under this, we have motivation and engagement. Readers who possess internal motivation read more frequently, thereby organically compounding their vocabulary and fluency, often called Matthew effect in reading. The rich get richer. And then we have here reading anxiety, negative emotional experiences during earlier reading can use cognitive bottlenecks, freezing working memory or preventing fluid comprehension. Okay, so let's have the psychological awareness. Okay, so when we speak of psychological awareness, guys, the foundational ability to recognize, manipulate individual sounds, phonemes in spoken language. Without this, decoding text are incredibly difficult. Okay, so I mentioned here phonological awareness is an entirely auditory or oral skills that occurs before a child even looks at a print. It is the understanding actually that spoken language is made up of smaller unit sounds such as words, syllables, onsets, okay, and individual phonemes. Okay, just like what I mentioned a while ago, phoneme breakout through or breakthrough. For example, phoneme, take note of the meaning of phoneme. Phoneme is the smallest unit of a sound in a language. For example, the word cat, I mentioned this one a while ago. So cat, that's the word. So it has three phonemes, the k, a, and t. That's the sound. Okay? Uh, okay, that's the sound for phoneme. So if a learner cannot mentally isolate the sound from the rest of the spoken, from the word cat, they will struggle with as teacher points to the letter K, C, and says this letter makes a K sound. So phonics is the relation between letters, graphemes, and sounds phonemes. You cannot teach phonics successfully to a student who lacks phonological awareness because they do not yet have the auditory hooks to hang those visual letters on. Okay? Take note of all of this, guys. Okay? So let's discuss this further. Okay? Okay. Matthew effect. Let me underscore that Matthew effect. So the effective Matthew effect. Okay? Look at that one in our slide. The Matthew effect. The rich get richer. So an intrinsically motivated reader chooses to read in their free time. So this extra practice builds their vocabulary, their word recognition, and structural comprehension. Okay, so because reading becomes easier and more fluid, guys, they enjoy it even more and read even more complex material. So conversely, guys, a student lacking motivation avoids reading, falls behind, finds the task increasingly frustrating. No? Okay, because they don't have the skills and retreats for further from text compounding their difficulties over time. That's why they are having that kind of anxiety, reading anxiety. So what does this mean? In our slide, it says there, negative emotional experiences during early reading can cause cognitive bottlenecks. It's hard for them to read. So they're having already anxiety, cognitive bottlenecks, freezing working memory, and preventing fluid comprehension. Okay? And so I think we're done with our discussion for today unless you have questions in mind. Okay? So I hope you've learned something for today, guys, about reading. Okay. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.